Welcome to Q30's exclusive interview with Quinnipiac President Judy Olian. I'm Kay Pattyfoot, Q30's News Director. President Olian, how are you doing today?
Wonderful, great to be with you, and I can't wait for your commencement, Kay.
Thank you. First of all, thank you again for taking the time out and interviewing with me. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
We're going to start things off today and talk about COVID-19 and some steps to get back to normal. What are your goals to get the student body, faculty, and staff vaccinated and to have next year go back to normal?
Well, first of all, I hope that everyone takes the opportunity to get vaccinated. Connecticut has been terrific. First of all, opening up to people who are frontline, and many of our students and faculty and staff who are frontline medical and clinical workers were able to get vaccinated very early on. Probably about 2,000 of our community did. And then, of course, it was age-based. I got it before you, Ken. I'm a lot older. And then, of course, now it's opened up to everyone who's over 16, which can be our students. I hope our students are signing up whenever they can. And then as the university, we're doing our very best, thanks to the governor's office and our partnership with some vendors here, to try to get our students vaccinated here on campus, those that haven't been, before we take off for the spring break after commencement. So we're working very hard on that. Hopefully we'll have an announcement for you then. But the key is that it's scientifically advised, encouraged, it's safe. It really is the protection against COVID that we need. Obviously, there are religious and medical exceptions, but I strongly encourage everyone to get vaccinated. It certainly has given me a measure of confidence and safety, so I hope that everyone avails themselves of that opportunity. And the more that our community can be vaccinated, as close to 100%, the more we can get back to normal in the fall.
Now, depending on how many students get vaccinated at Quinnipiac for next fall, will the weekly COVID testing still be happening?
We have to wait for the CDC to give us guidelines, but I think that the closer we are to 100%, the less the need is for weekly testing. And so far, it's worked, I think, well in the spring with everyone coming in weekly, and I have to hats off to our students who have been so responsible and collaborative, because our rates have been really low. Last week again we went back to, I think it was 0.6. I think the aggregate rate since the beginning of the semester has been less than 0.5. That is terrific. That enables us to continue in person and to be relatively confident of our safety. And I just hope that not only do we make it through commencement, which I'm sure we will, but that everyone, has a measure of wellness, that they're being protected because of their self-monitoring and also the testing. But once everyone's vaccinated, it's a whole new ballgame. Much, much easier.
Now, due to COVID-19, the university suffered a budget shortfall, and because of that, some people were laid off or furloughed. Are there any plans to bring those people back next semester?
Well, the university did have make tens of millions of adjustments in our response to COVID, in moving to Zoom environments in all of our classrooms, in weekly testing for everyone, all in the interest of safety, and of course we needed to do that. Unfortunately, there were very few people that were laid off, and then some people, in the interest of budget savings, had to take furloughs, and our faculty also moved to teach more, to cover what was a larger number of classes because of the social distancing. We expect to get back as close to normal as we can in the fall. Most of the people that were furloughed were furloughed temporarily and are back. And I really am very grateful to the personal sacrifices that our whole faculty and staff, from the frontline facilities workers and public safety workers, the staff and the faculty, that the sacrifices they made to keep us going. It was really, really a product of their heartfelt dedication to Quinnipiac and to our students.
Are there any plans to hire more faculty or staff of underrepresented backgrounds?
Well, as you know, Kay, we have a strategic plan which has 4 critical pillars. One of the pillars is around inclusive excellence, and we're doing a lot to shape the community to be more inclusive, more diverse. And I should mention that all of our hiring is done with an eye towards being very open and embracing of diversity. Last year, though we hired less people, 34% of the hires were underrepresented minorities based on the most recent numbers I've seen from HR. And this year, so far, in the first 3 months, we hired 59% who were people of color. And that's because of our commitment to inclusive excellence. We want people to be exploring the range of hires we can make. And the more role models we have that look like the diverse community from which our students are coming, I think the more welcomed and comfortable and inspired our students will be. Of course, that isn't the only component of our inclusive excellence plan. We have a lot of actions that we're taking, for example, in high schools, delivering university courses to diverse high schools, working with community colleges, students that are called the New Haven Promise students, to bring them into Quinnipiac, bridge programs to make sure that the transition from high school or from the community college to the university is made easier and people are more prepared for and are welcomed into an environment where they can thrive and be their best selves and feel that they are embraced by the community. That's ultimately our goal. And we're coming out very shortly with our second update on our 10-point plan to advance racial justice. And I've said repeatedly, our commitment is to the long term through actions that we're taking that have results. So hold us accountable to results. We hold ourselves accountable to results, and that's what we're going to be reporting on.
Now, a lot of people, a lot of students are looking forward to a lot of the new projects that are going to be happening on campus. How will you ensure that your 10-year master plan is finished within a timely manner?
Well, it is a 10-year master plan. It probably has an estimate of something like, and the master plan is about physical facilities, whether they're academic facilities, labs, academic buildings, classrooms, resident halls, where we have living learning communities embedded in them, or the recreation and wellness center, where we're going to break ground probably in a couple of weeks. You're going to see some barriers go up, and we're going to start that. Unfortunately, you won't be here, but you can come back as an alumna to use it from fall 2022. So that plan is very comprehensive. It's not an architectural plan. It's a master plan that says, based on your strategic plan, here are the landmarks, the milestones, the community spaces that we think you're going to need, and then you'll fit in what the needs are. We're currently scoping new academic spaces and residential facility, addressing the needs of what the community sees as its needs. And this will unfold over time. The plan is probably estimated, as we see it now, at around $500 million if we did everything in the plan. We can see our way to doing a lot of it, most of it. We need some philanthropic assistance to do it, but it will unfold over a 10 or so period, and maybe even longer, given the ambitiousness of the plan. But we're already starting, and one of the, I think, important attributes to remember during COVID was that we addressed COVID, we worked on dealing with the challenges and crisis of COVID that no one could have imagined. If you had told any of us in March last year, this is going to be a year plus, you would have said, we're out of our minds here. But it was. So we had to keep focusing on that. But at the same time, we kept our strategic plan vision and execution going in a parallel track. And that's exactly what the facilities master plan is, a component of our strategic plan that will unfold over time and keep the march forward towards the University of the Future.
Now, public safety is currently housed in Irma Residential Hall. Are there any plans to move them? And if so, what's the timeline like for that?
Well, when we think about the facilities master plan, there's a whole lot of dominoes. So if you move this unit out, then maybe that unit can be moved into. So I don't know if this is going to be the case, but certainly one example of that will be that our student health services, the counseling center, and the medical center are moving into the recreation and wellness facility come next fall. So that vacates that building. Well, certainly we'll be asking what makes most sense to move into that building. And it is potentially going to be the case that public safety may move into that. I'm not committing, but we do recognize, especially with our new chief, Tony Reyes, that there should be a dedicated space that isn't necessarily in a residential hall. But you can see how all of this is a domino. When one moves out, it vacates a space that can be retrofitted to another unit, etc.
A lot of students are advocating for more inclusivity and representation on campus following the events this past summer. Can you just give a brief summary of the 10-point action plan to advance racial justice and how the progress is going with that?
So as I mentioned, we will be in the next week or two publishing a comprehensive second update. We provided a first update, I think, in November or December, November I think it was, after we published the 10-point action plan to advance racial justice in the summer, and then also our commitment to the LGBTQ plus community. I mentioned a couple of statistics on hiring when we spoke about hiring. I think that's very significant. Again, to my mind, no single statistic represents a change in culture. You have to move on multiple fronts to really achieve a change in culture that takes root and really reflects an inclusive excellence community over the long term. So just to give you a few examples, this summer we'll be creating some courses that are delivered in vulnerable high schools from Quinnipiac to those high schools to, first of all, connect those students to college classes and to show them what it's like, but also to connect them specifically to Quinnipiac. Another example is with the New Haven Promise students. Last year we quadrupled the number of New Haven Promise students that came to Quinnipiac. It involves significant financial aid. I sit on that board to help facilitate that connection. Our community college agreements, we expect to expand into another community college, which gives community college students, it waives their admission fee and helps them, once they're admitted here, to manage the financials of it. They can even get a Q card and even live in the residence halls before they move officially into the campus to, again, ease the transition. This summer, we're developing a bridge program for veterans to address the transition from the environment that they were in, the tough environment of the military, sometimes in hot zones in the world, to come to college. We last year started a bridge program called Quest with mentoring for underrepresented students who are new first-time students coming into the institution to help them prepare and then mentor them throughout the year to stay with them and retain them. We're developing an Indigenous land statement for Native Americans, our commitment to the Native American community with that Indigenous land statement. We're about to publish the data on the demographics of our faculty, students, and staff as part of our 10-point commitment. We're going through, every college, every school is going through a curriculum review to see if we're reflecting sufficiently courses and content that acknowledges the history of underrepresented groups in the country, the history of oppression, and policies to remedy that. So I want everyone to see that the 10-point plan was intended to hold ourselves accountable to each of these points, but to also show that there isn't any single simple fix, that you have to work on all fronts to really achieve deep, lasting, sustainable change.
Yeah. Now, can students expect the university to make or to be more strict when a racial incident happens on campus, if whether that's from a student or maybe a department or a faculty or a staff member?
So please know that today, whether it's through our student conduct process or through Title IX, we are extremely diligent and committed, and if you want to use the word strict, about examining and remediation, appropriate remediation around any incident that comes that is formally lodged. And we've made that process easier for students to have very visible ways of making complaints. But the other part is that whether it's because of FERPA or the protections under Title IX, we cannot come back to the student body and lay out the report because of privacy, confidentiality concerns. And we are working with the SGA, with the ASA, with the Multiracial Student Association to say, is there a combined student faculty staff body that might have some greater access to these investigatory processes? But even then, even if they participate, they'll be bound by the same confidentiality rules. So I don't know how to say it, but, other than to give our very firm commitment. I mean, there was an incident this past year where students felt that, well, the university didn't do anything. Well, in fact, there were pages and pages of Title IX investigatory report. And most incidents are not simple. They usually have nuances associated with them, which we have to address. And yet we couldn't come out and say to the students, other than we have investigated and taken appropriate action. We can't say more or much more than that. So perhaps by having students a bit more involved in the process to the extent that we can legally do so, it will provide greater comfort. But this is not a legal process in the usual sense of the word, because students are protected. And I want to use some words that Don Sawyer, our vice president, Dr. Don Sawyer, had said. Students also have to recognize that we're an educational institution and not just an adjudication institution. And as an educational institution, there are some times where mistakes are made, but can be learned from. And this is an environment in which you learn not just career or cognitive or technical concepts, you also learn behavioral concepts and how to be a future enlightened citizen. So sometimes mistakes are egregious and there are no ands, ifs, or buts. But sometimes students can be taught and nurtured into becoming better in their behavior after an investigation is conducted. And we feel that that is sometimes the right measure as an educational institution.
Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's an Instagram page. It's called Q Bobcats for Justice, and one of the posts said it was this person of color, and they mentioned how they were walking late at night, and a public safety officer, stopped them and just questioned them like a lot, and they felt very racially profiled. Are there any talks with the new chief, maybe on how to combat this, or more trainings that will be done?
Well, I think the answer is we're always trying to educate. Whether it's our students, our faculty, staff. So our faculty and staff have mandatory bias training. We just made it available to students, and I think something like 1,000 students have already initiated that training. And of course, Tony Ray's a person of color himself who comes from the city of New Haven, where he was the chief and very experienced in a racially diverse community, is going to bring all of that thinking in collaboration with our students to make sure that everyone is as racially sensitive as appropriate. Now, many of our public safety officers, one of the great things about Quinnipiac is that our employees can bring their dependents to the institution, assuming they get admitted. And many of our public safety officers have children that are here or have been here, whole families, as is true of anyone across the university. And they're so much more than public safety officers. They're teachers, they're coaches, they're greeters. Some of them are the best admissions staff. So they also treat this as a place that they want to educate our students. And so I think they're extremely well motivated, and if there's room for improvement, I am certain that that will happen.
So students believe some decisions may be being made without their input or the input of some student leaders, such as Student Government Association. This semester, the parking fee made commuter students a little concerned that the university is really only concerned with financial benefits. How will you ensure that the students' voices are being heard about some of these changes?
So I'll answer the general question and also the specifics. We have, I think we're the first institution in the country of higher education to have a chief student experience officer whose sole purpose is to focus on the student experience, all the student functions, student-facing functions other than academics report up to him, whether it's dining or the bursar or the registrar or admissions or public safety, veterans affairs. And he has created innumerable advisory groups. The first year advisory group, the dining advisory group, the residential experience, the first year seminar. Works very closely, as I do, with Sophia Marshall, the head of the SGA, and with other members of the SGA. So I would say that thanks to Tom, and his name is Dr. Tom Ellett, as I'm sure many of you know, there has been so much more contact and responsiveness to the student voice. And many of the changes that you're seeing, I know that the dining services is even, we're seeing huge accolades, and the food trucks and so forth. That came from the Dining Services Advisory Committee, where ideas on what kind of food and how and so forth. So there is a tremendous interest in communicating and in hearing from students, and I think that there are structures to really exercise that and be able to hear from our students and also from their parents. We do communicate with them. This week we're going to have a parents, an admitted parents session. On the parking fee, I hope that the explanation makes sense to most of the students. I'm not saying that this is going to be uniformly appreciated. But what we're trying to do, and we are moving in that direction, is to create a much stronger residential living experience with living learning communities, with, over time, faculty living in the residence halls, with some maker spaces in the residence halls. with living learning communities that are very specific to student interests. And that's why we're also making improvements in all of the residence halls. And we wanted to send that message also that for 3 years we want students to be on campus. We want them to have a fear of missing out, FOMO, if they're not on campus. And therefore, we are incentivizing students to live on campus. That was very much the logic. I understand that some students who are commuters are not happy about this. We're one of the very last institutions to make any kind of parking for dollars, and we're only charging commuter students in this instance. So it's a very small amount. I remember when I went to the University of Wisconsin X decades ago, I paid a parking fee then. I mean, there are very few institutions that don't charge parking for everyone. In this case, it's just for commuters. And the logic is that we really want you to live on campus because it'll be so much more vibrant, and therefore we're expanding and investing in the residence halls.
Are you worried that this, both of the two things, the living on campus for 3 years and the parking fee, may turn away some students for that reason?
Well, if there is a financial impact, there's certainly an appeal mechanism, and of course we exclude people that are living in the closest proximity to the campus. So we hope that if there is a bona fide financial or medical reason, that'll be addressed through appeal. Those that are immediately in the vicinity are not required to do so. So I hope people will see the reason to live on campus.
Do you have any more plans to host the town halls that you once did?
Oh, well, we want to, and we have hosted town halls. They've been virtual town halls, and we've hosted quite a number of them. And this month, we are going to also host a town hall around our issuing of the most recent update around diversity and the 10-point plan to advance racial justice. So that'll be, we don't have a lot of time, so that'll be the town hall that we host before graduation. I love the town halls because we learn a lot, but we've certainly hosted quite a number of them over the last year. They were just all, unfortunately, virtual.
All right, so we're approaching commencement, which means the end of an academic year. This will mark your 3rd year as president. So during your 3 years here, what are you most proud of?
I am most proud of the way our community has come together under adversity, that we haven't lost our kindness, our generosity to each other, our care for the institution, whether it was our faculty and staff who totally rallied when needed and turned on a dime and pivoted around March 15th of 2020, and did it because they really care about our students and about the institution. And I'm most proud of the way our students express love and care for Quinnipiac and for each other, and have therefore enabled us to be in person, unlike many, many other institutions in the country that couldn't be, over what has been a difficult year. The other thing I'm really proud of is the progress we're making as an institution. We spent our first year developing a strategic plan for the University of the Future, built on those 4 pillars, and I won't recite them now, but you know them, and there are many components of those around academics, with our new provost, Dr. Leibowitz, with our new CXO, with the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, with our community outreach, that we have really connected so much better to the Hamden and New Haven region and North Haven region, that we're progressing with a very clear strategy, making really important changes and innovations. We've made some facilities changes, I mean, on the rocks, and all kinds of improvements in labs and in the residence halls, and continuing to do that. That all follows the strategic plan and the umbrella of the strategic plan. But buildings alone or programs alone don't come to life without the real love and emotive investments of our community, whether it's our students, faculty, or staff. So I'm very proud of just that sense of emotion and care that comes through. And you know, the level of leadership that sprung up across the institution through adversity was something that blew me away. And I'm very proud of that.
What do you hope to improve upon during your term as president of the university?
Well, first of all, I came to an institution that was incredibly entrepreneurial, had grown like almost no other academic institution. I give huge credit to my predecessor, President John Leahy, who built an institution over the years by being just a gutsy entrepreneur and built so many fantastic schools and programs. So nobody comes in and builds Rome in a day here. You really coming in on the shoulders of his leadership and of everyone who was here. And people stay here for a long time because they love the institution. But what I would say in terms of, quote, improving is really to realize our strategic plan. This is a 5-year strategic plan, which will be followed by another strategic plan. And what we have in there we articulated our ambitions about careers of the 21st century, about being in touch with the marketplace, about being a community that reflects the kaleidoscope of all groups in our society, about being inclusively excellent, about the well-being of our own community here, the wellness, the well-being, the connections with also outsiders. And then, of course, lifelong learning. We hope that as an alumna, you will always see us as your learning partner of choice, that you'll always have a connection to us. And also for people who come to us at whatever stage of learning, and then support us. So philanthropically, we need to build the institution, not just thanks to the tuition that we plow into investing in the institution, but also through philanthropy. In the last 2 years have been record years in philanthropy, and I hope that continues.
What are your hopes for the Quinnipiac community for the next semester?
Well, I hope we are all healthy, first of all, and I hope we get back to as very close as possible to before. And of course, that'll be enabled if we get vaccinated. And I'm very optimistic about the future. I can already feel it. I was just driving back and forth from the campus to home and back, and I saw these shoots of spring. The leaves are suddenly popping out, and the air of optimism. I was on campus on Saturday after the big event where we planted and did great things, and we had a baseball game, we had a tennis, we had soccer on Sunday, we had softball, and I was just so optimistic about the future because the campus felt totally vibrant and exactly as it should be. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is all the time we have today. President Olian, again, thank you so much for sitting with me and talking with me.
Okay, I totally enjoyed it. I thank you for all you've done over your 4 years here at Quinnipiac, and I wish you every success at Columbia, and you will be the next Oprah.
Thank you. Stay up to date with all of this interview and others. You can follow our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and YouTube at Q30 News and at Q30 Television. And make sure to download our app at Q30 Television as well for more updates. Stay safe and wear your mask, Bobcats.